Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Amina. Now for those that don't know, I did my undergraduate at King's College London, and I did my postgrad, masters, my MRes at Imperial, and then I did my PhD at UCL. So I'd like to think that I am qualified enough to speak about all three of them, especially the ones that I spent 3 years at. Well, UCL technically for almost 4 years. And ultimately, I'm gonna just say it right now and say of the three, King's, Imperial and UCL, I definitely would say that I would pick UCL. But this is a very general blanket statement based on not a specific course, because I did different things at all universities, more just the overall experience, like taking into consideration location, social life and academic and career prospects. I would love it if you could subscribe to my channel to see more from me. I'll leave the links for the Imperial and the King's College London versions down below. If you want to go ahead and watch that, feel free to. I have split the videos into 3 sections, and I'll do the same with this one as well. So the first section will be based on the education, so the actual academic aspects of the university. The next is the location, and then lastly the social aspect of the university. UCL, as you probably know, has a very high standard of education and definitely ranks top for a number of courses. Depending on what course it is that you actually decide to enroll into, there are rankings whereby maybe Imperial is top university overall, but for your course it might not be the best, and that's something to consider and to really think about. I definitely found that with postgraduate degrees as well, so masters and PhDs, UCL has a very good reputation. Their courses do tend to be more expensive than maybe, I don't know, Queen Mary for example, or King's. If you were to go to UCL for a master's, it would be more expensive. I do think it's worth it. I do think you get value for money at the end of it. The thing that UCL has over Imperial and KCL now is the study space. This was definitely a huge issue. Had I filmed this video, I don't know, a year ago maybe, I would have said this was a major downfall of UCL. But since they erected this new study space, this new building that I unfortunately did not get to use because I left before they finished building it, but they do have a brand new space just next door, the Bloomsbury Theatre, literally adjacent to it, and it's a huge space where you can go and study by yourself. They have a prayer room downstairs as well, which is amazing because the prayer room that they had before was so small, and now they have a really nice prayer room, brand new, lots of study space, lots of space where you can socialize as well, and that was a major issue with UCL before. I think academically students were having to go to cafes around the corner or sort of be crammed in small spaces. UCL has a huge library, which is, I think, a lot bigger than, for example, King's library on the guys campus anyway. It has a huge library, many floors and a lot of study space. There are loads of sort of nooks and crannies, like loads of sort of corners where you can sit down and get some work done in silence. And I tend to find that it does get quite busy, especially around exam period, but I mean, all universities are like that. They do offer a wide range of research intensive courses and programs and opportunities. If you are someone who wants to go on to a master's or a PhD, there are a lot of options in their undergraduate courses where you can spend some time in the lab. And I know a lot of people who, when I was doing my PhD, were undergrads and then now have gone on to doing their PhD at Cambridge University, or even have gone all the way to America and are working in top positions purely because they spent a lot of time really using that research intensive opportunity that they gained from being in UCL. And I found that was very different to maybe King's, where I didn't see that as obviously. One thing that I noticed about UCL as well is that there were career fairs all the time, and I did not see many career fairs happening at King's when I was there, and I was an undergraduate student at the time. At UCL, there are corridors of career fairs happening all the time, and even if you don't necessarily know that it's happening on that day, just purely by walking through the university you will bump into a career fair. And I mean, I was doing my PhD at the time, like I said, so I wasn't necessarily looking for an undergraduate, post-undergraduate career, but it was tempting, seeing all the different brands and seeing all the different companies and industries that were there to offer internships or postgraduate schemes and things like that. And it was very obvious that they had a good reputation with employers and with companies because they were always coming in and they were always at the university. And I also find that in the corridors when you're just walking through, because the corridors are so wide, there were a lot of poster presentations going on as well. So just by walking through the university, you definitely feel that sort of student atmosphere, different to what I felt like at King's on the guys campus, like I said, where everything was quite narrow and quite small, and there isn't really that space for a career fair, for example. Whereas at UCL, it was genuinely, I feel like it was every other week that there was some sort of career fair happening in the corridors that I bumped into. The other thing that kind of overlaps with the next section is the fact that the campus is, for the most part, all in one location. I love interacting with students that came from a range of different backgrounds, whereas I found that when I was at King's, for example, or even at Imperial, surrounded by a specific department or a specific subject. So at Guy's campus, I'm surrounded by medicine, dentistry, and the biomedical sciences, and that was it. And it's quite limiting because then when you go to social events and things like that, you're only meeting, for the most part, people that are in your field and in your specialty. And when I was living in halls at King's, everyone that was in my location obviously was doing sciences. So I didn't meet any other literature students or language students or anything else. And I think that's quite limiting. I definitely think, in hindsight, looking back at it now, it definitely hindered how much I kind of got to know people and sort of my social circles. They were very samey. Whereas at UCL, I found myself, just by going to an event, I found myself getting to know people from a range of different backgrounds, and it's just nice. I think when you go to university, you definitely want somewhere that's not limiting to who you meet and who you get to know. Next section is location. Unbiased opinion, I think it's in the best location, purely because if you know Euston, you know that you're sort of like, this is Euston, right? That's the stations here, and then Euston Square station's here. So you've got so many lines. Euston has National Rail, so it goes all the way outside of London. King's Cross is just down the road, so you can even go to Paris if you wanted to on the weekend after uni. And then you've got King's Cross, so Euston Square, and then a short walk, you've got Russell Square, you've got, I've forgotten the station now, you've got Goose Street, you've got Tottenham Court Road, like maybe a 10-minute walk, Tottenham Court Road, and then obviously you've got the whole of sort of Oxford Street as well, so you can go shopping and spend all your money. The thing that I found was, if the TfL rail that I was taking to get to uni wasn't working, I could always take the Central line, or I could take the Circle line or something else, and there was always that option, which I think is really important, especially if you have like a 9 o'clock meeting or a 9 o'clock lecture. Having the option to take a different line or a different route is surprisingly, it happens quite often as well in London, so don't be surprised if your route isn't working every single time. So having those options is a nice thing, and definitely something that I valued. It's also close to the British Museum and the British Library. So the British Library is next to King's Cross Station, which, like I said, is sort of, I would say, like a 7-minute walk from UCL's main campus in Euston, and you can go there to get some work done if you want to change your scene a little bit, or if it's a little bit busy at university, you can go to the library, and I think it's a great space. It's the British Library, I mean, you can't be more focused than there. You're also close to the Wellcome Museum, the Wellcome Trust, which is literally touching UCL as well, and there's a nice library, like a hidden secret library up there as well, so it's great. So many cafes, so many restaurants, so many study spaces, and it's just such a pleasurable area where you can go for brunch before you go for a lecture if you want to, or just go to a cafe and get something to drink. It definitely is a really nice area. It's also next to 2 other universities, so it's next to Birkbeck University and SOAS University, which is quite nice as well, because again, they have their social activities and social events that you can attend if you want to, and it's just a mixture of students, so it's not so, we're all UCL, you kind of have UCL, Birkbeck, and there's a farmers market every Thursday as well, which all of those 3 universities kind of come to and congregate at. So yeah, I just feel like the location, I don't know, maybe I'm biased, I don't think I'm biased, but knowing London as well as I do, I definitely feel like, compared to Imperial, which is quite west and very sort of in the touristy area, and King's, which again, depending on which campus you're in, depends, UCL is just in that perfect central area, which yeah, it's just perfect for I think someone who wants to enjoy London as well as get an education. I didn't live out for UCL, but the downside I would assume would be finding accommodation. No one that I know that lived out lived within walking distance. Because you're so central, you'll most likely be living in like Camden, so sort of North London is where I think most people that I know lived. But you can really live in sort of East London, so Stratford. Like I said, it's very well connected, so it doesn't really matter where you are. You won't be more than a 15-20 minute tube journey or even a bus journey away from the university. And then lastly, but not least, the social aspect of UCL. UCL is definitely full of international students as well as home students, so you've got a mixture, which is I think quite similar to King's and Imperial as well. Anyway, they're very, very similar in the sense that, you know, London attracts such a diverse range of people, so you're in a nice environment where you can meet people from all around the world, which is amazing. So in my lab, for example, I think I was there was 2 British students, so me and this other student, and then I think the other 6 were like Italian, Spanish, Iranian, Indian. It's just such a diverse range, and it was so nice because every time someone went back home, they'd bring, you know, a nice box of like desserts, and it was just, yeah, so delightful. It was really, really nice. It was just a nice mix of people that I think I came across in the postgraduate scene anyway. I would say that UCL has very similar vibe to King's when it comes to students, like a young student cohort, and you would find a lot of students that kind of come from the UK more than Imperial. I think Imperial was a bit more heavily international, whereas I found that UCL and King's were quite similar in terms of the kind of students that you would come across from the UK. I loved the societies that UCL has to offer, and I think King's and Imperial again King's are quite similar when it comes to what they offer in terms of societies. I joined the ISOC, which is the Islamic Society, and I hadn't joined an ISOC in the past before, so this was my first ISOC that I joined, and I found it really nice to be able to go to the events on Friday. If I'm not mistaken, I think an East African Society popped up at some point as well, so I joined that as well, which was really nice. And also the Equestrian Society as well. I loved horse riding, and I learned how to horse ride in 3 months. And it's actually, I regret not doing more lessons with that society purely because they offer such a discounted rate. I said this for every video, but I really wish I did more. It's just at the time when you're doing your education, you think you need to focus on your education and nothing else, but actually there's plenty of time to be able to do both social and academic activities, because when you're older and you start work, there isn't the opportunity to do that. So definitely take advantage of societies when you're at university if you haven't started yet. I hope that was helpful, and I hope that gave you some insight on what I think about UCL. I was thinking so much recently about what negative thing I want to say about UCL, and I genuinely couldn't think of something negative for the experience that I had. Like I said, this is my experience, and I'm sure people have bad experiences with every university, but I couldn't think of a negative experience or a negative aspect of my experience. So if I think of something, I'll leave it down below, and do let me know if you have had a good or bad time or a good or bad experience with UCL, because I think it's great to have different perspectives and different accounts, to have a more unbiased view as opposed to one person's view. But do let me know what you guys think about UCL, or if you have any offers that you're considering with UCL or with any other universities in London, and I would love to be able to give you some advice on which to go for based on my humble opinion. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.